Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Verde and Black. I am Adrian Healy. I am delighted, whatever the next word is beyond delighted, I'm that, to finally get Davy Arnaud into the seat. We've been trying to make this happen for a while. Davy Arnaud, assistant coach right here at Austin FC. We finally have you, Davy. Thank you for coming on.
I'm excited to be here. Glad I could finally make it. We made it work out.
He's even wearing a different shade of verde for the occasion. For those of you who are listening, I'll just have to describe it. It's not quite the full-on bright verde, but it's close. It is. I like it. Before we get going, I have to tell you this is brought to you by PointsBet, founding partner of Austin FC, and also by Swish Dental. Talking to a man with a very fine set of gnashers as it is, but Swish Dental, 10 Austin area locations for all your family dentistry need. Davy, here we are, a couple of months into season 2. For me, covering the team, for everyone watching and observing and commentating, the differences are quite stark and maybe obvious from the outside. Maybe it's not quite as obvious what's been going on the inside. So just to start off with, give us your kind of assessment on how different year 2 feels to year 1. The results are very different, but you get to see and be a part of the whole process leading to that.
How different does it? Well, the results have felt different, obviously, yeah. and it feels good. But I will say, it still feels like we're part of the same process.
Yeah.
The same journey that we've been on for a year and a half now. So to me, it's just a continuation from where we left off from last season. Make some tweaks or some adjustments and some observations at the end of the year that we implemented at the start of the year. And so it just feels like, to me, this is just, it's a step on our journey, and we're obviously in a good place right now. We're happy with the results so far.
It's part of the same continuum. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as different as everything feels, actually, personnel-wise, we're not that different. 9 of 11 players who finished last season started on opening day this year. And, as you say, you've been very sort of careful with the additions you made in the offseason. But basically, it is still the same squad of players.
Yeah, it is. And I think, when you get a completely new group of players together at the start of year 1, trying to implement our way of playing, Josh's idea about what he wants to see and how he wants to see this team play. We've had a year. You have a year to start to develop that and hopefully see signs of that. And I thought you saw some really good signs last year of what that could look like. And now you move into an off season and you make some adjustments player wise that we think areas where we can improve or get better, make the team better, and implement now this core of the same group that we've had into the way that we want to work and how we want to play, and now implement a few pieces that can help us make some slight tweaks and adjustment. But this work started a long time ago now, and people were seeing the results now, how they have been now. But this is something that this group's been working on for a year and a half now. So hopefully we're starting to see some of the fruits of the labor, so to speak, now in the results, and I think you are.
It is so funny, isn't it? Sort of observing from the outside. The same is true the world over in football, where you can take a team and almost the same group of players from one season to the next, and the next season can almost bear no resemblance to what had happened the year before.
Yeah, well, it's tough because Josh came in with a very clear idea about how he wanted this team to play and what that looks like. And that's not something that can just happen overnight, right?
No.
It's you start from zero, from completely fresh with a new group of players. And what was done in the first year in terms of starting to implement that, and the players now when we started this year, we're so much further ahead, obviously, clearly, than we were last year, because we have a core group of players that understand what is being asked. And like I said, you add now the new players, and now instead of 24, 25 guys trying to get on the same page, you're now talking about a handful, which is completely different. It puts you far ahead, or puts us far ahead of where we were at this time last year.
And as someone who's been in the league as a player and a coach as long as you have, which is, don't want to remind you, it's like 20 years.
Yeah, it's a long time now. It's a long time.
But given that, and given how well and intimately you know this league, how important was it that some of the players you brought in the off season, the Arrutis, the Felipes, the Ethan Findleys, how important was it that those guys knew the league inside out?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I don't think you can understate the importance of having players that understand our league are in a team. And not only players who've been around, but players who have been around and had success and understand what it takes to win in this league. And this has been the same story for the last 20 years of the league, as long as I've been involved in it. You need guys who have a real understanding about what our league is about. And it's the same. You see guys that come into any new player that comes into our league, there's very few players that come in and have this immediate impact and a really easy transition to have success in this league. And it does happen. But for the most part, you see players coming from outside the league that take a little while to adapt until you see their full potential. That's why it's important to have this core group of guys that understand, and the additions that you talked about on top of the other players that we brought in, the Johan Valencias, the Ruben Gabrielsons, adding the Felipes and the Maxis and the Ethans and these guys who've had success and know what that takes is really important, because they can help carry that same message to the players. They understand what it takes.
And at the other end of the career spectrum, you've got someone like Danny Pereira. I'd love to get your take on what goes into someone like Danny, because again, we can see the evolution right in front of us, and it's wonderful to see the steps he's taken from year one to year two. Give us your take. Obviously a lot of that has to be internal. He's evolving as a player, but as a coach, what's it been like for you to sort of be involved with his maturation process?
Yeah, Danny's been really good.
Hasn't he?
He has been really good. And speaking from a personal perspective, Danny Pereira as a person, as a guy, he's a good person. He's a good teammate. He works hard. All the qualities that you want to see. You want to see a guy like Danny Pereira succeed, or I do. I know I do. I have I really love seeing guys like that be successful. And we can't forget Danny Pereira, where he came from and where he was playing, not at a huge club, and then into college, and the pressure of being the first pick, and and I go back to that. There was not a lot of people saying that he should be the first pick in the draft. So not a lot of people talk about that anymore. When it initially happened, there was people ready to and I think the club has been more than justified in taking him. But seeing how much he's grown and how he's taken it on, how he approached the offseason, he came in and from the start, he has just continued to get better and better, and he will. Danny Pereira's he's a special player, and he's been really good for us. And when, like I said, what I like to see is his attitude and his mentality. He's a guy that you want to see be really successful.
Where does Sebastian Driussi rank for you, Davy, in terms of, you played with a lot of great players in your time in the league, and you were one yourself, but and now you've coached some too. Where in terms of pure talent, where does Driussi rank for you?
Yeah, he would be up there for me.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of obviously great players in this league, and there are a lot of very good players in this league. Sebastian, when he's at his best, he has a different gear. He has the ability to take our team to another level. What he provides for us in the attack, his understanding of what the game needs, his technique, his willingness to run and defend. I don't want to, you can't understate that. It's hard to find that combination, right? Of guys who are that special with the ball and talented, but a sheer willingness to defend and sacrifice for the team is, for me, one of his best talents and best qualities, and it's been so good for us. But in terms of sheer ability, he's definitely up there.
Yeah, special. We're fortunate to be able to watch him week in, week out. Watching you guys work is always really interesting, Davy. To my eyes, I'm always intrigued by sort of the dynamic of the coaching staff as a whole, with Josh as the head coach, and then the four of you as assistants, as yourself, Rodrigo, Nolan, and Preston. How would you describe the process? I mean, it's very normal for a team to have that many assistant coaches. I think nearly everyone does nowadays in our league, and in other leagues it may be even more. But how do you guys, the four of you who assist Josh, how do you kind of go about your business of sort of deviating or sort of carving up the workload. Is that always evolving? I mean, do you always,
we have our roles, right, within what we do, and there's obviously a lot of work to be done. So that's kind of divided out amongst us, and what I think is good. We have a really good balance of personalities and qualities in terms of coaching. And hopefully it's our job to complement what Josh is. It's our job to implement what Josh sees and his vision, and help him to implement that in the best way that we can. And that's what we try and do. And I think we have a really good balance. I, for the most part, am in charge of opponent scouting. So I'm preparing that and helping us as coaches and the team understand what the opponent's going to present, helping to game plan for what we're going to do against the next opponent. Nolan's obviously in charge of day-to-day implementing game model, training sessions, does a great job with that stuff. Rodrigo helps Nolan with that. He also helps with some of the scouting when we have a lot of games. He obviously he speaks Spanish, which is obviously very, very important for us. Josh tries to speak his Spanish as well. I try my bit. Nolan tries his bit.
You're doing the Duolingo
too?
we
try. Yeah, we try. But Rodrigo is a really important bridge between those guys who maybe aren't there with the English, and Rodrigo does a great job of that. And then Preston is obviously in charge of the goalkeepers, and Preston does a great job on the set pieces. Preston is in charge of the set pieces, attacking and defending. And we saw that was an area, a lot of games can be won and lost, man. And Preston's done a really, really good job, and the guys have bought into it, and we've seen the benefit from it so far this year. But we have a good group, man. The coaching staff that we have, for me, is a really good balance of personalities and qualities, and it's been enjoyable.
Do you enjoy scouting opponents? I mean, is it a game of cat and mouse sometimes? Are you ever completely surprised by what an opponent does on a game day when they hadn't ever done that before?
Yeah, well, hopefully the idea is that you're not, but what you see is you can't dictate what the opponent does, right? It's they're going to play how they want to play, and if they want to make certain changes, they're going to change and adjust. But the goal is to try and have a really good idea and a clear picture about what the opponent is going to do to our best guess. The majority of the time it works out like that. Sometimes you don't get it completely right, but that's soccer too. Guys still need to be able to adjust, but to scout the opponent, we're trying to give the team the best idea of what it's going to look like come game day, have ideas and solutions and clear pictures and understanding of what the roles are on the day, and that's what preparing for the opponent is. It puts you in a position to hopefully win the game.
I think it often gets overlooked by casual fans out there just how important if you want to call it the backroom staff, the team behind the head coach is, and it can make or break a head coach, can't it? I mean, it's crucial.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Josh has a lot on his shoulders, man. A head coach, you have a lot on your plate, and I don't think you can fully understand that until you've sat in that chair. Nobody can understand what that's like. I think that's one thing with my experience in Houston, my last year there, I got to take over that role for 9 or 10 games, right? Yeah. So not that I've had a full season doing that, but I've had a little taste about what that feels like to sit in that chair. So I can understand some of the things that Josh is going through. It is a completely different world when the decisions are on your shoulders. One seat removed from that, 2 seat, it's a different ball game on the outside.
Bearing that ultimate responsibility is changes the dynamic completely.
Yeah, and it's our job as assistant coaches to do whatever we can to help Josh prepare this team and help implement his vision and his game model and what he wants to see this team do. And all the stuff that we can help take off of his shoulders, we try and do that, because ultimately as a head coach, he's always going to have the burden of making all the decisions and leading a big group of people, and that can be heavy. So it's our job to help support him and in any way that we can.
Yeah, those ideas and philosophies, as you said, Josh has always been right up front about it. This is how we want to play, but it's not a static thing, is it? It does evolve. Like, you guys have definitely changed some things year 2 to year 1. Not quite playing it out at the back as much from the goalie. So
yeah, I mean, there's certain things that you look at, you reflect on at the end of the year. You try and make slight tweaks to put the team in better positions to win games, and is there certain times where you haven't played out as much? Yeah, probably so. But it's still something that we work on. It's still something that will continue to be part of our game. And I think, if you ask Josh the same thing, it's still something that we can do.
Yeah.
Right. So this ability to understand what the game needs in the moment, it's about game management as well.
Right.
So we've kind of put that on the players as well to take on this responsibility of game management and understanding what the game needs. But it doesn't mean that we've gone completely away from it, because it's still something that we can do really, really well, and at the right time still hurt the opponent.
Yeah. How would you describe your personal relationship with Josh? Because the two of you obviously have spent a lot of time together in different scenarios now, in Kansas City, and I don't know, you weren't together in DC, but you overlap, and that so you were obviously you've how would you describe your partnership?
Yeah, it's good. It's we've had a relationship for a long time now.
Yeah.
Josh, when I first came in, when I first started playing, and I was in Kansas City, and he got traded to Kansas City. Josh was, he was a national team guy, and
you
I
were
was
a younger guy.
Yeah, I was young, slightly younger than Josh. A couple years younger than Josh, not too many,
not
but
to
a
put
few.
a number on
it,
it,
not too many, but a few. But right from the start, Josh was a guy who he took me under his wing. He took a couple of the other younger guys under his wing. So I always, from the very start, appreciated that.
Yeah.
And it would really help me in my development as a player. As our careers went on and we went separate ways, we still kept in touch. And as he was coaching and I was still playing, we still kept in touch. He was a big reason that I went to DC.
Yeah.
He ended up leaving DC. So
right,
we didn't
just before you got there.
So we didn't quite.
Yeah.
But we've always kept in touch. And then as I went into coaching, we talk about the game.
Yeah.
And so Josh is a relationship that I've had for a long time now, going on 20 years now. So, when he got the job here and asked me to come be a part of it, it was a really easy one for me to want to be here. And now, we're working together again. We're not on the field. We're off the field now.
Yeah.
But I still feel like in a lot of ways it's, I've personally, for me, I've learned a lot since I've been here, just as I did as a player all those years ago. Josh has some really good experience, obviously, in the coaching world, and some really good ideas. And now I think we're all in an environment where we're continuing to learn and grow, and that's what it's about, So that's the environment we're in.
Well, I want to just briefly tell your story, or let you tell your story about how it all started for you, and touch upon your playing career as well, which was one I was able to view as a commentator towards the end, certainly. But in the beginning, Davy, your story is like, I didn't even realize that. I knew you'd grown up in Texas. I didn't realize that you'd spent a part of your formative years in England.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that, because I was like, wow. And there's a Peterborough United connection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I moved to England when I was 10. So I lived in Southeast Texas until 10 years old.
Yeah.
I moved to England. My mom remarried, and
we
moved to England when I was 10 years old.
And it was a soccer coach that she remarried.
Yeah. He was coaching. He would do camps for Umbro in the summer. So he was traveling around the U.S. doing camps, and he was that's actually how him and my mom met. It was he was doing one of the camps that I was in one summer.
She was taking young Davy.
That's exactly right.
Saw the coach, and
that was it.
The rest was
with
history.
The English accent, and that was it.
That's how we get him all every time.
That's exactly. That's what I hear. That's what I hear. So so then I was in England for 6 years, 6 good years.
And you were already a pretty decent player for your age group at that time. So was there a moment where it looked like you may stay there and play? Because I know you were in a youth academy.
So I was just playing for my local club in soccer at that point. I mean, it was a bonus that it was obviously the biggest sport in England for me to get to go there. It was what I loved doing. But I went there, and I was playing for my local team with my friends from school, and there was a scout there, and from Peterborough United, and I ended up going there on a trial and played there for about 2.5 seasons. And then when you're, as you would know, when you're 15, 16 over there, they offer you what's called a YTS or a youth training scheme. And I didn't get offered that. And the coach at the time said he didn't think I was going to ever play professionally, and had I thought about coaching, and I was like, that's not really for me right now. So that I was devastated by that. But one thing I think is good about our system here, when I went there 15, 16 years old, if you're told you're not good enough, I mean, I was still tiny. I hadn't grown yet, and that's pretty much it. Your route is done at that point. You don't get another look, which can be, it can be harsh. And I wasn't ready at that time. I was obviously in a good setup with some good players who spent time playing in the Premier League, a couple players, but I wasn't ready at that age. So, I made the choice to come back here and try and go to high school and kind of go through the college route. And,
Which you did, and you stayed in Texas, West Texas A&M, the
that's
Buffaloes.
Right. That's
is that
it.
Right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then by that stage, it had obviously become apparent that you were, MLS was. Well, let me ask you this: at what point were you thinking, okay, this is going to happen for me? MLS could be a possibility, because I know you actually ended up leaving college a year early to go to Kansas City. Didn't you?
So I was at school at West Texas A&M, and I made the choice. Butch Laufer, who's the coach there, and has been the coach there for many, many years. Back when I was there,
is he still there?
Still coaching there. I still talk.
He's still a Buffalo.
I still talk to Butch, and Butch is great coach. I learned a ton from him, and he was actually a big reason that I went to West Texas. There was a whole nother story. I fractured my leg. I was maybe going to go to South Carolina. That's another Josh Wolf connection. I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I was in high school, and the South Carolina coach came to watch me play in a game. I fractured my leg like 10 minutes into the game, so that was not a good situation.
Yeah.
But South Carolina would send me stuff about going to school there, and it was Josh Wolf and Clint Mathis were the two. So my Josh Wolf connection goes back before we even actually knew each other.
You almost played at college with him.
But I ended up going to West Texas A&M with Butch, and from there we had an assistant coach that played for Bob Gansler in college. Bob Gansler was in Kansas City, and after my sophomore year, he asked Bob Gansler if I could go there for a week and just train with the team. So I went for a week, and I didn't come back.
And that was a hard-nosed Kansas City team that you got into with Gansler, and Tony Meola was still there at that time, was he not? And,
Preki,
Kerry
Zavagnin.
A lot of winners in that team. And was that a big formative process for you as a young player?
That was huge for me going in. So I went from West Texas A&M to, like you said, Kansas City with Bob Gansler, who he gave me an opportunity, who I have so much respect for, and I talk to every now and then. I haven't talked to him in a while now, but what a coach Bob Gansler is. But Tony Meola, Diego Gutierrez, Mike Burns, Peter Vermees, Kerry Zavagnin. I mean, these guys who were big national team players. And you talk about personality and having to develop some thick skin and some character. You had to in that team, but it was a little, things were slightly different back then, but it made you understand what it took to win and what it took to do this every day. They were great.
And as you already touched upon, 2004, first year you really were a full-time starter in the year. Maybe I got that wrong. Maybe you were the year before, but that was the year that Josh arrived, and the two of you were actually up front together that whole year.
That's right. Yeah, 2004. So 2002, I played maybe a game or two. 2003, I made a few starts, a handful, and then 2004, Josh and I. That was the year I want to say we started pretty much every game together up front. We played in a 4-4-2, and me and Josh and I played up front together. And that was such a good year. We had a great team. It was one of these teams you felt like in 2004. We felt every time we went on the field, I felt like we were going to win the game. I mean, I really did. We won the Open Cup. We lost in the MLS Cup final, but just the personality that we had in the team and the quality that we had in that team, that was a fun year.
Yeah. 9 goals, 8 assists for you. I don't have Josh's figures in front of me, but
I think he scored more than that. Yeah. Slightly more, maybe one or two more. One or two more.
That's brilliant. So, because you didn't play, as an out-and-out striker that much in your career, but that year was almost the exception. Is that?
Yeah, that's fair. So, that year was the main year I played there. 2005 a little more, and then they moved me kind of wide, so I played as a winger, and at that point I was all over the place. So,
well. A future coach of yours said this about you as a player. Ben Olsen said, "You don't fully appreciate Davy until he's out of your lineup. There's always something missing when Davy's not on the field. You can't put numbers on it," which is such an interesting quote. What sort of player were you? Because you played in a lot of different roles for different teams, but you always brought. You always brought it, whatever that competitive juice is, the X factor. You had that in spades.
Yeah, well, I knew that I couldn't I mean, the reality is I couldn't survive without that. I mean, that's the truth. I played up front for a whole season and scored, 9 goals. I wasn't going to be a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I wasn't the best at anything, but I tried to be good as much as I could be. And one thing that I knew that I could really be really good in was my mentality and my willingness to compete. And I just wanted to be a guy that coaches could rely on and teammates could rely on. That was if I could walk away. I said to myself, if I can walk away from my career, and my teammates and my coaches knew that anytime, wherever they needed me to play, and they had me on the field, they knew I was gonna. When it got tough, I was gonna be there with them. And I tried to embrace that. To be honest with you, I wasn't a good enough player to say I'm. This is my position. This is where I play.
Yeah.
I wanted to be part of a group and be when you put me on the field, a plus to the group, wherever that was, what position that was. That's what I tried to be. So.
But those qualities are even more valuable in a league like MLS, where you've got smaller squads. You need tactical flexibility, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially with the way the league's set up. There's the difference between teams is so minimal, right? Every game, every game's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Like you said, the squads aren't necessarily the biggest ones, so you need to have. It's important to have players on your team that are flexible and can do different roles, right? I think it's really important. So for me personally, as a player, I tried to take on that role. I was that guy that said, "Coach, you need me to play there. Put me on the field. I'll play."
In the MLS record books, Davy, your name is written large in maybe 2 surprising categories for people who never got to see Davy as a player. You are the most fouled player in MLS history. You're on the receiving end. 746 of them. I don't know how many bruises you've still got.
I got a few.
You're ahead of Jaime Moreno, who's the second most fouled.
Okay.
Classic DC striker.
Okay.
But you're also on the other side of that ledger, 7th in fouls committed in league history. You're the only name who's on both lists.
Well, if that doesn't tell you some kind of story, I don't know what does.
You're in some good company in the fouls committed. Kyle Beckerman, Diego Chara, Ricardo Clark.
Yeah,
that's
okay. That's good. That's good company to be in for sure.
How would you end up on both those lists?
I don't know.
Is it just?
I would think that people I played against. I think anybody would tell you. I've played against guys that before, say, DC United. I played against guys, Chris Pontius, guys like this, and playing against them, they were like, "Man, I didn't like you. I hated you," and that was okay. I understood that, right? Like that's the way that I played. But then when I was on their team, he's one of my best friends now. So I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't good enough to not give everything that I had every game, and I was going to compete no matter what. That is what I was going to do every single game. I was going to compete.
Lahoud says the same thing, by the way. He's like, "Oh, Davey, he was a son of a gun to play against."
Yeah, that's okay. I've accepted that, and it's part of it.
I think it's a badge of honor. It's great.
Yeah, I had to do it to survive, man. That was what I did, and I'm unapologetic about it. That's who I am. I think you have to be who you are.
Any when you look back at your playing career now, any sort of immediate highlight that stands out? If there's one thing you think about first, in all your years as a player, is there one season? Is there a game? Is there a campaign? Is there a trophy? Is there?
The 2004 season we've already talked about was really special. Yeah. The first game at Sporting Park, the new stadium.
Yeah, you were there for the whole Kansas City.
I was there for that transition, and I was the captain of that team. So getting to lead the team out for that game was.
I think I called that game.
Yeah, I think you
0-0
against Chicago. Yeah, that's right. It wasn't
a cow came on the field and scored.
It wasn't the best game, but
someone in a cow uniform charged on and kicked the ball
really?
in the back of the net.
I don't remember that. Yeah, but I'm sure it happened. But no, I think those stick out to me. Obviously, getting to play for the national team was a really big honor and something that I love. But
07 Gold Cup, was that it?
Yeah. 07, 08. So that was a lot of fun. Wish we could go back and play that final again.
Yeah.
Those are some things that stand out.
Yeah. You also went through an expansion process before with Montreal.
Yeah. And I didn't mention that, but that first year in Montreal playing under Jesse Marsh and the group of guys that we had there, that was a special year. I mean, it was a big deal in Montreal to have their first team in MLS. So getting to be the captain of that team was a huge honor, and play with some really good guys there and some great players with Patrice Bernier and guys like this that still talk to now. But that was a big one for me.
Scored their first ever goal as well.
That's right.
At the Olympic Stadium, was that?
It was at Olympic Stadium. Yeah. Honestly, man, the thing that sticks out to me the most was the first time that I saw my name on a jersey in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I say that to these guys. I said it to Kip this year. Actually, I said I called him the day of the game. I said, "Hey, man, it's a special day. Like
when you walk in,
take it in, man.
Match day. Yeah.
Take it in. Yeah. It's a moment you won't forget. So it's one I love.
Brilliant. Talk a little bit about your sort of progression from playing to coaching, because in many ways you did what Josh did. I mean, you ended your playing career at DC United and used that as a launch pad to transition from becoming a coach. Did you always know you wanted to coach? I mean, or was there a time towards the end of your playing career where that became sort of more apparent?
Yeah, it was probably more towards the end of my career because some guys during their career are taking coaching courses, and I never did that. Like when I was playing, my focus was on playing and being a player. As you start to get older and your career goes longer, you start to think along those lines. And I had the idea that I want to stay in this. I want to stay involved, and coaching is obviously the next best way. So towards the end, that my mind started to go there, thinking about what was next. But I was really fortunate with Ben Olsen in DC. He was a great coach. He's a friend. To him to give me that opportunity to go from playing and step right into that role. And just be around and learn and help some of the young guys. And I didn't have a huge responsibility in DC when I was there, but I had a role that was really, really good for me to sort of set me up to go down the coaching path. And that led me to Houston, and then I was taking my coaching courses, and you start to develop from there. But that first year and what Benny allowed me to do and the role that he gave me was great for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that both you and Josh have had your first year with Benny and then gone on, spread your wings.
The Ben Olsen coaching tree, man.
It is. Yeah, I'm still waiting for Benny to pop up sometime. I mean,
we are too. And I hope. Benny, we were in DC. We were on a little group text with him, Josh and I, and Benny and Nolan Sheldon, who was in DC. Benny has a lot of connections around. He's been around a long time, but we always tell him, man, Benny, we need to get you down here. So he'll be down here at some point. But what a personality, great coach, just a good human to be around, man. I love spending time around Benny.
And then obviously the Dynamo opportunity comes up, and for you it's like, back to Texas after all these years, and you had some good years there with Wilmer Cabrera. That Dynamo team, I remember. I mean, it was he won the Open Cup in 2017. It was kind of an exciting, dynamic team with Alba Feliz flying down one wing,
Romel Kyoto.
Good team to kind of take the next step in your coaching.
Yeah, it was good, and again, Wilmer gave me the opportunity. He got the job there. Matt Jordan, who was the GM in Montreal when I was there, introduced me to Wilmer, and I got to interview with him, and it was great. He took me on, and that was sort of my, now taking a bigger step and more responsibility, and really enjoyed my time there with Wilmer. We had a good team. The team was fun, counterattacking, exciting. With those two guys on the wing, and Mauro Manotas, that was the year he scored 23 goals. So it was good to get to be a part of, and I was, I did my coaching licenses when I was there. So it was a good period for me, and it was a fun team to be a part of. And winning the Open Cup was great. It was nice. Yeah.
I remember being there for that. We broadcast that final at ESPN, and you just destroyed the Union that night. They weren't even in it.
No, it was good, and we got through the semifinal on penalties. So, but that same team, that the year before we were in the playoffs and beat Portland in the first round of the playoffs and lost to Seattle. But it was a good group that we had, and Wilmer did a good job with those guys. Yeah.
So then the sort of final part of your coaching odyssey thus far was making the switch to here, and you already obviously have touched upon it. Was there any doubt in your mind that it was the right thing to do? I mean, you'd been with Houston and sort of as you had a few games in the head coach's chair, but then when Josh came calling, no hesitation at all, I take it. But
no, I wanted to be here with Josh, and with the Houston thing in the interim, I interviewed along with Tab and a few others for the full-time role. And honestly, there was something pulling at me, even if it had gone a certain way, which they went in a different direction, which was fine. I knew that this was going to be the place for me to be here with Austin and with Josh, and I just had a really good feeling about the whole thing. And I mean, you don't have to be around here too long to understand how special it is here as a club. Ownership, what we have here, the fans, the stadium, the coaches, the players. I mean, I'm not trying to make it sound, but it's the truth. It's been a pleasure to be a part of so far.
No, I mean, you were here, and you and Josh were almost first boots on the ground, weren't you? I mean, well before there was a single player signed. So to sort of be attracted by that vision of what it could be, and to see it actually come to fruit.
You could feel it right from the start. Even when we were here before, there were a lot of people here, right? It was before we had one player. You could you could just feel it, and you could feel the energy in the city. And I'm not surprised as to what it's become now, and I think we're going in a good direction.
Were you that familiar with the city before, having grown up in Texas? I know it's several hours away, up near the Louisiana border. You grew up, wasn't it? So you're probably much more familiar with Houston as a city. Had you been to Austin much?
I've been to Austin, but not a ton, not as much as I would have wanted to. We always, when I came here, I loved coming here. A couple years previously, my wife and I came and met some friends here over like a New Year's Eve break, and we're in a house down by downtown, and loved being in the city. This was before the team had the city had a team, so I've always loved spending time here. So not super familiar with Austin. I spent more time in Houston, but a city I've always
fun
loved.
city, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Family loving it,
it, and they're back in Texas. My kids were born in Kansas City, but they claim they're Texan, and we tell them they're Texan too,
nice.
So.
Well, we're just thrilled that you are here, and I want to thank you for being such a big part of what this club is building, and taking time to come on the show too. I
enjoyed it.
Fantastic talking
I enjoyed
to you, Davy.
it. Hopefully, I didn't ramble on too much.
No, I love you rambling.
No, it was good. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Continued success in year 2 and well beyond. It's been fabulous to cover this team in what has been a great second season so far.
Perfect.
Great stuff. That is Davy Arnaud, everyone, assistant coach of Austin FC. Thanks so much for the pleasure of your company. I'll talk to you next time right here on Verde and Black.